Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creator Series. We're here this evening for round 6 of the F2 series in the Styrian Alps of Austria. This evening, or this afternoon, I should say, the hills will be alive with the sound of horsepower, not music. And I'm very excited because we've got a little bit of weather to contend with as well, so this should be a big banger of a race. In the virtual commentary box for this F2 action, we have myself, Tom, and we have Jamie. The same duo as last week. How are you doing, buddy?
I am simply fantastic, as I always am when it is race day, and it is exactly that for Austria, and as you mentioned, for the Styrian Alps, and for F2, it has just gotten a little bit more spicy. Some big names on the grid, and especially some competitive ones that we see normally on the F1 grid. People like Tiamat Marduk, Meraki, and a few others joining us tonight. But I'll tell you what, this is looking very exciting and very competitive.
Absolutely. So we have one big miss, which is Hayden Gullis, currently second in the standings, a long way behind Unstopped Rob, though. So we would expect the ART driver to extend that championship lead, but we do have Mr. Tiamat Marduk. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, Australian YouTuber. Coming in, Ben Daly is in for the F2 for the first time this season. We also have our F1 Season 4 champion. Meraki will be joining us as well. Jake jumping into the F2 as well. So yeah, I think we could have some very exciting racing. I want to ask you a little bit about the track first. We had a little bit of a debate last week about whether we thought this would be a big banger of a race or not. With the added little bit of spice from the weather, what are you expecting early on here?
Well, to add on to exactly your point about the weather, we have a 50% chance of rain in the sprint race, and we have an 80% chance of rain in the feature race. So rain is pretty much to be expected this evening, and I think it's just going to, as you mentioned, spice things up. But in terms of what we could be expecting, that's a bit of an unknown still. I think anything could really happen, especially when rain is on the occasion, and I think a lot of drivers need to just play it cautious when we get into qualifying.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one. Obviously, we have had some wet races in real life in Austria. Obviously, not totally comparable, but we had the qualifying session in 2020. It was the Styrian Grand Prix, I believe, where we had that duel between Hamilton and Verstappen before Verstappen dropped it in the penultimate corner. That was a little bit crazy, and we've had some very good races there in the past. Do you have any main memories? Because obviously it was on the calendar for a while back in the 90s and then in the early 2000s, and then slipped away for 10 years or so, and then Red Bull brought it back as the Red Bull Ring, and every year it seems to deliver great races. I mean, 2023 was very exciting. I know Verstappen wins usual, but we had the track limits fiasco that went on as well. Everyone getting 5-second penalties. Esteban Ocon in particular was picking up quite a few of those. I think he got about 20 seconds of penalties. So yeah, any fond memories that you bring with you?
I mean, speaking about 2023, when Toto went on the radio with Hamilton and told him to just drive the car, he knew it was a beep box, and didn't look great in Mercedes' eyes. I think another one, Lando picking up a penalty. Hamilton picking up a penalty, and then Lando using it towards his advantage to pick up a podium. That was in 2020, I believe. So it was a really nice memory to see Lando finally pick up a podium in his career. But maybe some more memories can be made here this evening for Creator Series.
Yeah, absolutely. That 2020 race, after we'd had COVID and everything coming back, it was what a moment it was. That's still, as a McLaren fan, sorry that we've got our biases out of the way, but that's one of the best memories that I've had watching F1 recently. That was so fun because they had the timer in the corner as well. It was going down towards 5 seconds and then just dipped underneath. And then with the fastest lap as well, crazy. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the championship as well before we get going. Obviously, no Hayden today, so Rob is expected to extend that championship lead even further. The gap 2 races ago, I think, was 7 or 8 points. It's now over 50 points. And with Hayden missing this week, although Rob is missing next week as well, so it will equal itself out effectively. But Rob is looking a heavy favourite at the moment to get that promotion spot up into the main series for season number 6.
Well, I mentioned this to you last week, and I'm going to mention it to you again. I said there was a bit of a pattern forming And I'll run through it with you now. In China round 1, Unstopped Rob won the feature race. In Baku round 2, Unstopped Rob won the sprint race. In Monaco round 3, Unstopped Rob won the feature race. In Monza round 4, he won the feature race. And in Hungary round 5, he won the feature race again. And I bring this up because if you see a pattern, he has won at least one type of race, if that's a sprint or a feature, in every single Grand Prix that's taken so far in the F2 series as a whole in Creator Series. So, not only has that been an absolute efficient point for points overall in the championship, but it also means that could this pattern continue? Can he pick up another win, potentially even 2 wins? Is it going to be sprint and feature race? I don't know if it's going to be as easy, especially with rain and especially a few competitive drivers to join him on the grid, but it's looking heavy in his favour, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and it will actually, obviously you've mentioned those new drivers coming in. It'll be really interesting to see how Ben and Jake cope with this big transition from F1 cars to F2 cars, because they are completely different. It's crazy how different they are. Have you experienced that transition at all on this game? Do you know what it feels like?
I do. I've done a few practice laps and made sure I had a good idea and a good understanding of the difference between F1 and F2 cars, because obviously you don't want to have any confusion between them, especially as a commentator. But I think the biggest thing is handling, traction, braking. I find surprisingly similar between the two. And then I think probably top speed is another one. Downforce as well, playing a vital role.
Yeah, the traction's probably the biggest one, would you say?
I would say so. I think you need to be a lot more steady and a lot more sensitive, I would believe, with the pedal. And I think F2 cars, they're just a bit, I wouldn't want to say raggedy, but they're a bit more playful. You have to play around with everything, you know?
I think it rewards smoothness. It rewards that smooth driving style. Get on the power nicely. Don't destroy those rear tyres from sliding around all over the place. And I think the big plus point of the F2 cars, though, is that noise. I was at Silverstone in 2021 watching the F2. The noise was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I can't relate to that one. I've never been to an F1 circuit. I have been to Bathurst. I'll give you that one, but I've never been to an official F1 circuit. But no, I mean, I've seen videos and I've heard the noises from both the game and real life. The noise that comes from an F2 car is fantastic. From every time a gear change is made, when they upshift or downshift, the pop, the crackle that comes from that exhaust from the V6, it's amazing.
Yeah, so good to listen to. And I think we can all get behind that notion. And I think we can all hope that the F1 cars will sound that good in future as well, although we don't know how likely that is going to be. Just waiting to get going, though, as we get ready for the feature race. Of course, reverse championship order. So we're going to have the big guns at the back as usual, and we're going to see if Rob can pull off the same kind of recovery drive that we've seen him do in pretty much every feature sprint race so far.
We should obviously inform the viewers that championship order is completely reversed for the grid of a sprint race. So take Unstopped Rob, he would start P20. But for example, I mean, wouldn't the reserves start before Rob? Because technically they don't. No, but they would be ahead, wouldn't they? Because they don't. I guess it's something to think about with the reserves. But take Rob, who is P1. He's most likely going to be starting P20 because he is leading the championship. And then take whoever is dead last in the championship. It would then mean that they start P1 on the grid. Yeah. Compound allocation as well is the soft and super soft compounds, the red and purple. However, I don't know how effective that's going to be when we have clouds in the sky that are looking quite aggressive.
Menacing clouds. I think I actually don't think I've experienced F2 in the wet very often on this game, and considering how bad the traction is when it's in the dry, I'm expecting a few little whoopsies to be going on. It has to be said, and track limits as well is going to be a big talking point, because we saw it in the real life race. It is very easy to to go over track limits, pick up a warning, and we don't want to be seeing too many 3-second penalties, so I think we could be seeing a lot of them, and a lot probably stacked, because once you get one time penalty, it's very easy just to continue picking up. It just snowballs effectively.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful of turns 9 and 10, where the white line loves to be a bit of a dangerous point for drivers, especially in qualifying, where you'll see they'll not only invalidate on their current lap, but also the next lap they'd be going to proceed on to.
Yeah, a very difficult one. I think one-shot qualifying, like we've said previously as well, is going to be a little bit crazy, because obviously we have people invalidating. We are, though, getting very close to lights out for our sprint race. And he said feature race again. You can see the guys lined up on the grid as we'll get ready to go racing for the first time here in Austria.
I cannot wait. The grid, like I said, is looking competitive as ever, and lights out, like you said, moments away. This is looking great.
Off and running. You can see the grid order down at the bottom there, and we do have the 4 reserve drivers of our 2 resident F1 series commentators, Daniel Giddigan and George Morgan, 17 and 18, and then Tia McMarlock and Meraki, 19 and 20. How difficult is it going to be for them to try and fight their way back through the pack and challenge for those points-paying positions inside the top 8?
Well, I had the honour of co-commentating with George Morgan once, and I'll tell you what, it's a bit weird now having to do the honours of commentating him driving on a track, but it won't be easy, especially when I wouldn't say inexperienced with the F2 cars, but definitely not as used to the cars as maybe some of the full-time drivers would be, or even some of the F1 drivers would be, because at least they would still have driving under their belt. So I would say George Morgan and a few other drivers, Daniel Gilligan as well, would be feeling a lot of pressure behind them, and an urge to try and do as well as possible.
Yeah, and we've already got a couple of disqualifications to speak about. 12th and 13th, yours sincerely and F1 Alex. F1 Alex picking up a podium in the feature race last week at Hungary, had some exceptional pace. They've already crashed into each other, which is not an ideal start. I think that was Ben in the Prema going off into the gravel as well. So we've got a few skirmishes on the formation lap. People trying to have a little bit of fun, of course, but yeah, we're seeing them come around the final couple of corners. What are you expecting off the start here? Because turn 1 is quite the pinch point on the inside.
It is a very, very tight circuit, especially for turn 1. I'd take that back. It's quite open, but specifically turn 1, that white line and the sausage curbs on the inside line, it is not fun for a lot of drivers, especially if you're going to go down the inside. You need to make sure you have a very, very close gap, because if it's 3 or more tenths, normally that could result in some type of contact or resulting in a driver going wide. So yeah, racing is not easy through there, and you need to make sure that if you are going to go for a move, it is certain that there is going to be no contact being made.
Absolutely, and Meraki becomes the 3rd driver to get disqualified, this time for a parking infringement. So that will not help for the Trident starting down in 20th place. But as everyone lines up, we'll see Patterson getting disqualified from P5 as well. Would you like to do the honour of counting down the lights and kicking us off for the Austrian F2 weekend?
We do get to switch roles, but I would love the opportunity, sir. So looks like green flag has now been waved here in Austria, here in Red Bull Ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. The lights go out, and it's pedal to metal here in Austria. Good getaway from ART, but it looks like a bit of wheel spin's going to allow Trident on the inside line. I mean, Dan's Racing is now only big thinks for the inside line. Brakes early, make sure there's no contact between P2 and P1. Racing continues down the field. Looks like it's almost 3 wide between some of the drivers. G-Watt's now going wheel to wheel with Jess Gamer down in P7. Now just continuing that away, making sure no contact is made. Sneaking on the outside line is now going to be Patterson. Whoa. Making sure to be late on the brakes. Contact is made, and there's a huge pile up going into turn 3 out of the exit of Remus, and that is not what you want. VSC now deployed.
Yeah, crazy start. Punji picks up a penalty for a collision. We had lots of front wing damage picked up. We had a little skirmish at turn 1. I'm not quite sure who it was, although Patterson does have a little bit of front wing damage. Got a lot of penalties being handed out as well. Then down in last place, picking one up also. We've got Punji there with a penalty as well. And then, everyone just sort of drove into each other effectively through turn number 3. It seemed like quite the pinch point on the inside. I think somebody may have dropped it because I think Devlin New and Only Vic were side by side. But yeah, crazy start to the race. Another penalty ignoring yellow flags.
Absolutely, yeah. So as we go back to green flag running, looks like it's now Only Vic down to P6 as Matty D13 does get a nice run through back up to P6 on the grid out of the exit of turn 8 as they approach 9 and 10. Like I said, they have to be cautious of the white lines here. Racing continues, but still seems to be an urge of caution. Have a look at how close some of these drivers are to one another. It's like they are refusing to get past one another, but now just seeming to battle away much closer than they were previous laps on. Zach RC in P5 down the inside, does not get the run through necessary, stays in his current position with a 5-second penalty against his name. And I was going to run through it, but this action is continuing to be non-stop here at Austria, and proving why the Red Bull Ring is one of the best tracks to see some great overtaking.
Yeah, Zach RC going from attack to defence there as Matty D13 in the first of the Carlin cars, having a little look at the inside of turn 3, still going side by side though, down the second straight up towards turn number 4. This time it's the Carlin on the inside, and I wonder if Matty's going to be able to get past the NP Motorsport car of Zach RC. Down the inside we go. Lovely stuff as Matty D13 is up into position number 5, out in front Devlin Noob. We've seen this every single sprint race. The person that starts first or second builds up a massive gap, and it's 4 seconds between first and second.
Absolutely, and we go down to P8 and P9. Will to action between B-Roy and Only Vic, really starting to put on a nice show on display for us commentators and viewers at home, but a good run through out of the exit of turn 8 sees B-Roy up another position. It seems like Punju's going to join that. Alex Budd fighting away in P5 with Matty D13. Inside line, just got the nose still in there, but out of the exit of turn 10 does seem to go back to Roden Carlin up into P4 now. But as I mentioned, penalties again, it's still 5 seconds for Tia McMurdoch, 10 seconds for F1 Alex, 5 seconds for Punju, 5 seconds for Zach RC, and a drive-through for Patterson.
Wow, crazy stuff. A drive-through penalty is crazy to pick up early on. We've got more racing going on. Zach RC lost the position to Matty D13. Alex Budd also getting overtaken by the Carlin car. Big send up the inside, into the side of Matty. Both of them off the road. Crazy stuff. There must be a bit of damage there. I'd be surprised if the game doesn't give a penalty out as well. Zach RC tumbling down the order 9th, and that could be 10th any time now as Matty D13 drops behind his teammate Duncan and could be swallowed up again. This peak time B-Roy in the Campos going wide. I think there is big damage for that Carlin car.
Yes, Punju just seeming to try and make the most out of what looked to be a few bumps and scratches through the field, and looks like it is all calm and clean from now on. But yeah, close racing throughout most of this field, and aggressive racing it seems for people like Zach RC and Matty D13. Looks like it's going to be a good run through for P9, but doesn't look like he's going to use it into turn 9. And GWatt's actually up to P2, but not for the reason of overtaking. Patterson coming into the pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty.
Patterson with that penalty. Championship leader Rob currently in 12th, getting caught up behind Only Vic in the second dam. So that'll be 11th as Patterson is in the pits. I think the ART is going to get up into the top 10 fairly sharpishly. Got a lot of work to do if he's going to win this sprint race, but gets a much better run out of turn 1. This should be like candy from a baby down the kink of turn number 2 and up to the hairpin of 3. We will stay with the ART as it battles away with the Dams car. Up the inside for 10th place goes Rob, and this should be fairly regulation. Behind we've got Maraki in 13th, trying to make up some places, battling away with Jess Gaylor. Big move up the inside for the Trident, and that was very nicely done for Maraki up into 10th. Tim McMurdoch still down in 17th, and Patterson obviously with that drive-through down in last at the moment.
Nah, no big shocker there. Rob able to make very quick work over a lot of drivers, and it looks like Duncan up to a P3 on the grid now. But I'll tell you what, if this ART GP car, the Alpine style delivery of Rob, continues to push at the limit he is, we could see a very quick overtake for a potential lead. We'll have to not get our hopes up that high, but looks like a small mistake down near the end of the field, maybe around P13, 14. Didn't get the exact location of the car, but clearly a mistake happening around the second sector as racing now continues.
Yeah, and we had a really good camera angle on board with Matty D13. Second yellow flag, which I think is for F1 Alex. Again, Van Amersfoort cars in turmoil at the moment, 19th and 20th, as we return to the car of Matty. Got clattered into earlier on by Zach RC, trying to recover. Stays only 7th behind Punju, who's come through the field nicely as well, but gets a better run out of turn 1. Moves to the left-hand side of the track this time, and this should be a nice move around the outside with the helping hand of DRS for both cars as F1 Alex. Penalty for speeding in the pits, disastrous stuff. Matty D13 is going to try and hold us around the outside, still side by side with Punji. A little bit of a slide on the exit of turn 3 to get the power down eventually, and this should be 6th place for the Carlin car looking to recover from that contact earlier on. Down into turn 4 we go. You can see the dams on the inside, backs out of it, and that is a nice move from Matty up into 6th. Is it over though? Because Punji's going to fight it back on the exit as they're going to go side by side up towards turn 5. We've seen some great battles over the years through this corner, but Punji decides no, he's going to sit behind. You can see he's got a little bit of front wing damage as well, so it won't quite have the downforce to get that car turned in nicely. Both of these two though catching a little train in front, falling behind the two Campos cars in 4th and 5th.
No, really good slipstream and tow that DRS is clearly being put on display by these F2 cars. Obviously, new aerodynamic regulations going into the 2024 season, so expect even better pace from these cars going into next season in real life. But I know as racing continues, does look like the battle between Punju and Zach RC has settled down a touch, but expect more racing out of the exit of turn 1. As we go further down, looks like you're sincerely down to P15 as losing out some time and not getting the momentum out of turn 10, compared to Jess Gamer up into P14. Moving further up the field, looks like Meraki in P11 is getting a really nice run through and slipstream and tow on what looks to be P10 of Putty Pete down the inside, late on the brakes, making sure to downshift down to second gear, rotates the car purple in the first sector, making sure to put that throttle down flat to the floor, pedal to the metal, and it is now up into the points positions for Meraki, who now goes left and right, just indicating to the driver maybe we should work as a team to bring ourselves closer up the field.
Absolutely, we had a little bit of Campos civil war going on there. Tiny bit of contact between Alex Budd and B-Roy as they swap positions, and Alex Budd getting swallowed up by Matty D13 and Punji. But Matty D13 looks like he's got great pace, even with that little bit of front wing damage all over the back of that Campos of B-Roy, who also has some front wing end plate damage. So I'd say at least 50% of the drivers in this race at the moment with damage. This train going from 4th down to 9th with our championship leader Rob at the back of it. Then it's Meraki in 10th, as you were saying, and then the two Premier cars looking to catch up. Better exit out of the final corner for Matty as he's going to pull alongside, and this on the run down to turn 1 as these guys start lap number 7 as we come towards half race distance. Thinks better of it down into turn 1. But be careful of Punju nipping at his heels behind. Much better exit, and I think B-Roy's going to let him go here because that Carlin car is a lot quicker, and it is now ART Trident Carlin Campos is B-Roy's actually going to fight it with the DRS down into turn 3 through the kink of 2 and actually manages to hold on to the position. Will we see the switcheroo on the exit from Matty D13? Yes, but it doesn't quite work out as he would have liked, and Duncan has made a massive mistake in front of them. We're going to be 3 wide.
No, you know what? I don't actually think this was a mistake. I think Roden Carlin's actually switched over to the inside to allow for a better slipstream and tow. And now Matty D13 is going to use this towards his advantage, making sure to slam down that throttle as quickly as possible, getting a lot of wheel spin out of the exit of turn 5. But going into turn 6 in Pirelli corner, he's managed to get up to P3. What a fantastic strategy from his team. B-Roy still in P4, who got a big kick off the rear going out of the exit of turn 1, but clearly some teamwork from the Roden Carlin cars and making the absolute maximum of it here in the F2 series.
Absolutely, the two Carlin cars working better than the two Campos cars were, certainly, but Duncan's got to try and get this place back as B-Roy falls off the road through the final corner. He could be swallowed up into turn 1 because you've got not just Duncan in the road and Carlin car, but Punji right behind them as well as we go up the hill. It's actually going to be Punji that sends it up the inside of Duncan. Lovely stuff, easy move, and the Dams car gets ahead of the car, but I don't think this is going to be over.
Duncan's got DRS. Yep, and as I mentioned, Duncan's still got DRS, and so does Punju. This, like you said, battle is not done yet. It looks like the Gaps deciding not to break off by any margin, not even a single millisecond of a difference, and Slipstream and Tow continues to play a role, but more momentum out of the exit of turn 3 at Remus corner sees Punju secure well and truly nice and tightly a P5, but needs to try and keep that consistency lap after lap, corner after corner, every throttle and brake input to make sure he can get the maximum. Looks like a yellow flag on the board, and do look to be coming from Distinct Artemis in the high-tech GP car, but it may be to fight away with only Vic in P16. Maybe Artemis is looking for a battle, however, seemingly still losing time out. I wonder what may be the issue there. Zach RC up to P9 with Tiamat Marduk now up to P10. A big improvement from him in his pace as he continues to make his way through the field. And have a look at that, running wide is Zach RC. Tiamat Marduk now sending it down the inside. Slight contact made to the what looks to be right-hand side of side pod, but Tiamat Marduk in the Prima now now got DRS, good slipstream and toe. He's going to run through all the way into turn 1. Now shuts down the flaps, still not a made move, but has DRS going into the exit of turn 1. Much better momentum, puts down that throttle quicker. Now has the inside line, making sure to use everything he's got. Slipstream and toe, no ERS in these Formula 2 cars, no hybrid engine. Going down the inside, late on the brakes, rotates the car through turn 3, and Tiamat Marduk is up to P9.
Beautiful stuff. Zach RC was under pressure for the majority of that lap. It started with Maraca, who then got spotted up right there. I think it was 3 wide almost going into the penultimate corner. Rob continues his assault towards those podium places, up into position number 5. Trying to attack Zach RC almost side by side. As we run up towards turn 5, I think the car is going to in front, 10 and 11, then needs to pull away in front.
Mention ARTGP of Rob, by the way, because he's only a 10th off the high-tech, or sorry, I meant Campos of B-Roy. This is looking well and well better for Rob, who's about to make a move and about to not waste any further time. DRS is active, already will-to-will out of the exit of turn 10, and P5 becomes P4 for Rob.
Yeah, B-Roy running wide again through that final corner. Look at the switchback he gets though. Rob goes slightly deep into turn 1. I think they're going to be side by side with a few also to enter the fray behind. It could be 4 wide. I think that's Punju on the left-hand side, passing both of them, in fact. As we
wow.
3 wide. Oh no, B-Roy sends it later on the brakes, trying to battle it hard to keep hold of 4th place. Rob down to 6th, trying to get 5th place back as Punju is a little bit wobbly out of turn number 3. He's now got to be careful off that second road, and Carlin car of Duncan, who was very good with the team. Still on the offensive, looking at the inside of B-Roy to get 4th place into turn 5 as we go through the Red Bull livery. Dams car makes light work of the Campos, and that is 4th place for Punju. Excellent drive through the field. He's now going to chase after Matty D13. But this battle between the 3 cars behind is going to continue for a long while still.
No, absolutely. Punju has made the move, but is only temporarily made because B-Roy, I'm sure, will still be on the attack. He'll still be on the offensive, and he's, I'm sure, going to look for any opportunity that comes his way. And the Campos racing car will be waiting in the distance, seething at the teeth, just wanting to make sure that move is made. But it looks like he's actually about to lose another move out. Rob could be making a move back up to P5, and obviously lost out because Punju had a fantastic momentum out of the exit of turn 1, used that slipstream and toe from the DRS towards his advantage. But now that Rob has no longer got to worry about a driver behind, apart from Duncan, who just doesn't seem to have got the momentum out of turn 1. It is the inside line. The nose does now dip out from that inside line, but he is going to go late on the brakes, and this is what we love to see from F2 Racing. Late brake moves, and it is now Rob up to P5. B-Roy struggling to get down that throttle, and allows Duncan to get right up to the rear diffuser of the F2 car as racing now continues here around Austria.
Beautiful stuff. A little bit of a lock-up. I think we've got some contact further back. Yellow flag going through turn 3, and I think might be Patterson in trouble, or it might be Artemis actually further down the field. But yeah, brilliant stuff from Rob. Finally gets up into 5th place. Duncan and B-Roy still having it out behind them over 6th and 7th now. The damage on that Campos car is going to see him run a little bit wide through turn number 5, but that enables him to hold on to 6th place ahead of the Carlin car. And then we've got Tiamat Marduk just on the edge of the points. Is going to be charging after these guys. Potentially a top 5 for Ben, which would be, considering the start of the race he had, a very, very commendable achievement.
Absolutely, he's made 11 positions since the start of this race, and I'm sure he will be very, very proud of himself. As a fellow Australian, I can be very proud of him. But it is Matty D13 who's actually made the most overtakes for this entire Grand Prix. It's 12 positions as he's currently sitting in P3. Actually has DRS against G-Watts, and though not close enough to make a move and hasn't had a good opportunity to make a move, he is starting to close in that gap.
Rob on the attack as well, has managed to catch back up to Punju. He has a look up the inside of turn 3, very late on the brakes, and there's contact damage for the Dams car as Rob goes off the circuit and rejoins behind the Dams once again. That was very late and very optimistic from the ART car. He tucks back up into the slipstreams. We run down the hill into turn number 4. Going to try and send it around the outside, but I don't think it's going to make that work. We'll have to sit behind for another couple of corners. But look at the switchback. It gets massive wobble for Punju, and that sets in stone the move, and the ART is up into 4th place.
This is what I love about Formula 2 racing, that late braking maneuvers, and though probably a bit too late from Rob's perspective, it was still some fantastic racing on display. A very, very good switchback from Punju, but couldn't keep it there, and going down into the exit of turn 5 and 6, finally, Rob gets it done back up into P4. He now needs to make sure he can keep it in P4 and try and just, I guess, tick down some of that time a bit further. But on lap 13 and 14, on the penultimate lap of racing, as I mentioned before, Matty D13 is now up to P2. G-Watts would obviously love a good opportunity once again to make it back up to P2, but it has been Matty D13 who seems to be right on the pace. Someone who has been untouched this entire Grand Prix from start to finish. B-Roy has now made a mistake down to P7. Tiamat Marduk's now going to take that up to P6, but as I mentioned before, it does look like JD has been in a class of his own this entire Grand Prix.
Absolutely, just returning to what we saw there with B-Roy under pressure from Tiamat Marduk down into turn 1, ran wide and then dropped it over the sausage curb, slammed into the wall. Very lucky that he's still got his front left tyre attached to the car, but did sustain a little bit more front wing damage, and he locks up the rears again, and Duncan has to check up behind and loses about a second. Ben in front of them, still on the move, trying to get past Punju, both with penalties. He'll be squabbling over that final spot in the top 5.
Yep, Tiamat Marduk is definitely on the charge, and Ben will be trying to make the absolute maximum of it in the Prema car, replacing Hayden Gillis, who obviously will be missing out on some major points that will be necessary towards his championship campaign. Like you also mentioned earlier on, that Rob will also miss out on a Grand Prix, so he'll need to make the most of that one. Whatever the case may be, Prema down into turn 10. He's got really nice momentum and making sure to plant down that throttle. DRS now active, slipstream at an all-time high, making sure to use the downforce of the F2 cars, looks for the inside line, did think about it, backs out of it. However, on lap 14 to 14, the final lap of racing here in Austria, here at Spielberg, here at the Red Bull Ring, now using the outside line towards his advantage, tries to give everything he's got. He knows there's not many more laps remaining because this is the final lap of racing. Punju just gets a bit slippery on the exit, just seems to lock up his tyre a touch, and Tiamat Marduk now finds his way up to P5.
Score for 7th still going on as well. B-Roy and Duncan. Duncan tried to send it around the outside of turn 3. Didn't quite make it work. He's still going for the outside of turn 4. B-Roy is wise to it though. He may have front wing damage, but he's able to defend very nicely. But does he slip out wide? Yes, he does. Commentator's curse very much in effect there. B-Roy slips down into 8th place. Got Hoodie Peak behind. And that penalty is probably going to drop the Campos car out of the points. Nice stuff from Duncan. Returning to the front though, Devlin New has been in total control for this entire race. Stayed out of trouble on the opening lap. Pulled a gap to about 4 or 5 seconds. Been closed in by Matty D13, who has had exceptional pace. But the ART car is going to cross the line to win the sprint race. And that is the full 8 points there. Matty D13 over the line in 2nd. And G-Watts will cross the line in 3rd and stays there as that penalty wasn't enough to demote him behind Rob. Tiamat Marduk over the line. Will lose a couple of places. Side by side over the line was B-Roy and Zach RC, I believe. B-Roy and Duncan. Look at the deltas there going back. Game out of the final point in 14th. Yeah, that is the sprint race. Hugely exciting. A lot of damage picked up by cars as well.
You know, it's not even done, by the way. George Morgan's only a 10th and a half off Distinct Artemis. Racing's still going on here. But it does seem like across the line it will be George Morgan promoted to P15 because of a penalty that Artemis did pick up. And it does seem from that point onwards gaps are a bit too high. But no, it was getting close there and going into turn 10, but it has now settled down. But I would like to mention that ART will be happy with that run. Rob still picking up P4 from what was, I believe, P16 on the grid. So still a fantastic effort from the ART, and I'm sure very, very valuable points on the board. I think Hayden Gillis will still be smiling with Prema's results, still a P6 and 7, very, very important for the Constructors' Championship.
Absolutely, and we saw a little bit of carnage over the line from some of our drivers there, but it matters not as we see the podium there, and is the Sauber Academy ART car that wins the sprint race. Was a hugely exciting one, it has to be said. We'll go through the final rundown of the results here. Ignore the points system, of course, but it is JD Devlin, Matty D13, and G-Watts again on the podium in the sprint race. G-Watts in that Trident car finishing 3rd. Rob doesn't quite get back up to 2nd as he has done the last couple of weeks, but does finish 4th ahead of Duncan. Then the 2 Prema cars, Tiamat Marduk and Hoodie Peak, and then Punju rounding out the top 8. The 2 Campos cars just missing out on those points finishes. Then it's yours sincerely ahead of the MP Motorsport cars and Jess Gamer. Further down, we saw Meraki have a little bit of a stinker, ending up in 19th there. Also, the Van Amersfoort cars were in trouble for the majority of the race as well. So exciting finish too with George Morgan over the line. Very interesting stuff.
You know, he had a stinker, Meraki. However, he took fastest lap. That's something to remember.
It was, probably not the race that Jake was after. I think he got caught up with a little bit of damage early on when we saw him battling very hard with Ben, Hoodie Pete, and I can't remember who the other guy was. I think it was Zach RC who tumbled down the order a little bit to 13th in the end with some penalties. But yeah, very exciting stuff and should set us up nicely for a one-shot qualifying session and then the feature race coming up after that.
Yes, main 2 words, track limits. They will be the main thing I think a lot of people will be focusing on going into qualifying. The white lines are extremely strict, and we saw it both in real life and implemented in F1. If you're looking, actually it's not. They're on the grid, so I'm going to assume it's not that. But on my screen, I got tricked for half a second. It's full wet conditions, so maybe foreshadowing the future, but not what is going to be shown in the actual OSQ session. But there you go, you can give a little look-see at what the potential weather could be giving us.
Absolutely, and you can see it is absolutely torrential. Obviously, this isn't going to be the main race itself, but that is wet, I think is probably the assumption we can make there. That is quite rainy.
It is. It's a bit drenched. I would say so. I wouldn't say it's the best of conditions, as you people get to have a nice look at the Wreckfest that takes place behind the scenes when normally our face cams are on, and you don't normally get to see this. But yes, a Wreckfest indeed currently on display here on the F2 grid.
Absolutely. A bit of fun going on in between the serious sessions that will be taking place. We'll cut away from that now and return to us two to have a little bit of a discussion about how that went. We spoke about it last week. Would it be as exciting as we thought it would, with the slipstream not quite being as effective as it is in real life F1? Obviously, there's no battery to deploy as well, but it certainly lived up to expectation.
I think even with DRS having less of that punch that F1 has, and obviously we have to consider the fact that next year, or technically this year, there are new aerodynamic regulations that will allow for much closer racing, kind of like with the 2022 regulations that were introduced. But I think when it comes to F2 right now, with the current cars that are on our availability for F1 23, I think DRS is weaker, but because of it being a spec series, it's always going to be just as close as ever. I really don't know how to add on to it. It's really close, and you get some fantastic racing out of it.
We'll be hugely looking forward to the feature race, because we're going to have the fast guys towards the front. It will be interesting to see who's out of position. I wonder if we'll see a big name invalidate their lap times. What are the areas we've got to look out for, though, for one-shot qualifying? What are the main problematic corners that people have got to be careful of?
I think turn 6 is going to be a problem. I think a lot of people take too much of the inside line because there's no sausage curb there. They removed that from previous years, so a lot of people may need to be careful through there. Out of the exit of turn 6 as well, there's a very tight white line where also gravel trap is there and a bit of grass, so I need to be careful through there. And the obvious turn 9 and turn 10 at the Red Bull mobile corner, and I don't want to stuff up the pronunciation, the Rint corner at turn 9, the white lines. Yeah, it's a Austrian name, but I hope I didn't stuff up the pronunciation too badly for any of the viewers who may be Austrian. But whatever the case may be, yeah, turn 9 and 10, they're going to be dangerous little corners for track limits.
Jochen Rindt, of course, let me try and get this stats right. 1970 world champion, but post-mortem as well. I can obviously failed to lift the trophy at the end of the season. Very sad, of course, but yeah. Getting ready to get the one-shot qualifying session underway. I'm very much.
I'm just as excited as you are. I mean, who doesn't love some carnage potentially from what we saw in the rain? We don't know how it's actually going to take place, but if it is a rainy qualifying, I wish you the best of luck, drivers. That's all I have to say.
Well, we can confirm that it is a wet qualifying session.
Oh no!
So, very exciting. And,
oh no!
I think we're going to be seeing some big whoopsies, I have to say.
I mean, the smile on my face says everything. I think this is going to be fun to watch. I think the drivers may get a bit upset, would be the nice way of putting it. And we should get some nice racing. I think, no, to be fair, we're also going to get some great driving out of it as well. Because if we are getting some wet weather qualifying, then it also means we're going to see some wet weather masters out there as well.
Definitely. Who are you looking at? Obviously, we've got the big names. We expect Rob to be challenging for pole position. F1 Alex was very quick last week. Was very much in that fight. Punju's usually up there. Obviously, no Hayden, but his replacement Tim at Marduk should be towards the front of the pack if we go off the pace that was displayed in the sprint race. Maraki as well. We've got to keep an eye on him also.
Do I go with the street circuit merchant of Tim at Marduk? He has a great reputation. He has a lot of pace behind him. He's very competitive. I think Matty D13 could be another one. I would say almost a bit of an underdog, even with some statistics now behind his name. I think he could do quite well in the rain. I think Rob is obviously a very poignant one to point out because, you know, being the championship leader, you'd hope he have some good pace in not only dry conditions but wet ones as well. So I think that's something else that could be that. Maraki, I think, is another one that's probably not been pointed out. But in terms of predictions on who may take pole, a bit of an unknown for me. I think, like I said, some of the ones I may have highlighted may be up there. But yeah, this is going to be very, very close and competitive, as I've said, all session long.
Absolutely. I think we could be looking at a very, very close session. Obviously, in the rain, we do see the deltas separate a little bit more, so people will be a little bit further apart. And the skill gap definitely comes out quite a lot more in wet races. Are you a fan of the rain? Obviously, it's a little bit 50-50. Some people really dislike driving in the wet. Some people absolutely love it. What are your thoughts on that one?
I will admit, I'm not as much of a one-seater driver. I'm more into driving into GT cars. But I'd say when I am driving, I am a big fan of the rain. I think just personally, I'm able to extract a bit of pace that maybe other drivers can't. But overall, coming from a commentator's perspective, I think carnage would be a right word, and I think excitement is another. I think I've always loved some rainy commentary. It always leaves some fantastic action left on the track.
Very much so. I'm hugely excited. I know I've said that a lot, but I just can't wait to get going. I'm so ready for what's going to be in store for this, hopefully, chaotic Grand Prix.
Yeah, aren't we all just as excited as each other to get underway? I'm sure the viewers are just as excited. I'm sure the drivers are raring to go, making sure their strategies are perfecto. But before we get perfecto, they need to perfect one thing and one thing alone, and that is qualifying.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a very, very difficult qualifying session for everyone to manage, as we've said a number of times before. We're getting ready to get kicked off, though, for one-shot quali. And I think we are in for quite the treat. Everybody loads into the session for the second time this afternoon. We get ready. People are going to be getting their setup sorted, and we can, we definitely have some rain to contend with. That's what I'm looking at here.
Well, from what the track's currently looking like, even with the session that we won't be running, it is looking dark in the clouds. It's looking menacing, as you've mentioned, and it's looking aggressive for some of these drivers. So I'm sure we'll be more looking forward to it, and I'm sure dreading it at the same time. It's going to be very balanced throughout the pack. I think something that's probably going to mean less this qualifying session, because there is rain and this is in dry conditions. Charles Leclerc, back in 2017 in the Prema racing car, set down a 1:13.396 with a top speed of 211 kilometers per hour. So I wouldn't expect anyone to be setting down a 1:13.396 in wet conditions, but if you do so, I think it's time to go to F1.
Yes, I think he absolutely dominated that whole F2 seat.
Yeah, he did. He really did.
Going to have a new teammate to contend with fairly shortly, though, so that'll be
Hamilton.
an interesting one to see how that dynamic works. It's going to be fascinating. I think that day, it was a Thursday, wasn't it? That was one of the greatest days that I can remember in F1. Like everyone was, is this really happening? Is this really happening? It was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember as an Australian, time zones are a bit different, but I remember waking up, opening my phone, and the first thing I see from Sky Sports is news of Hamilton going over to Ferrari. It wasn't fully confirmed yet, but when F1 officially confirmed the news that Hamilton was going to Ferrari in 2025, my eyes couldn't believe what was actually happening. I mean, to have, upwards of 12 years with the team of Mercedes, to then make the shocking, what I would expect to be final move to Ferrari, it is mind-blowing to me.
It's almost like a fantasy, isn't it? Like, nobody... I know there were rumours for ages, and it was always like a little bit of a fairy tale, but I don't think anybody thought it was ever going to happen. Yeah,
it was. I remember, like I just mentioned, I think the rumours started around Monaco Grand Prix in 2023, so it had lasted quite a while, but I think official news that happened, like you said, last Thursday week, and what a way to get us started in February, eh?
It's been quite the silly season. The liveries that we've seen haven't been the most exciting. Cough, cough.
I think I have to disagree with you.
Oh, okay. Well,
I like the carbon fiber.
We agree on this opinion.
No. You know what? Alpine, and I mean, I think, to be fair, not AlphaTauri, but V-Carb does have the best livery. However, I think Alpine is a very close second there. I think the carbon fiber just looks fantastic on the car.
I will have to disagree.
Oh, it's cute.
On that one. Definitely we are going to score one shot qualifying as we head up towards turn number 1. Who invalidates straight away? Very difficult to see what happens. Daniel retiring straight away. I wonder if that was a bit of a weakness, but it is definitely still out in front with Meraki going up towards second one.
Yeah, Meraki just fighting away with the virtual car of JD, who now takes P1 and provisional pole as he takes purple in the first sector. The ART will be wanting to do the, I guess the main driver who normally drives the ART, and if you know, you know. I'm sure I'll shoot out a few hints there. Punju's now up to P2, now fighting away with F1 Alex as they enter into turn 6. This is still looking very, very close between the top 5 at the moment. Funnily enough, Diarmid Marduk's down in P16, George Morgan down in P19, and GWatt's now following to be retiring in P19. Looks like F1 Alex is now invalidated as well, and a few drivers really struggling out there clearly in these conditions. Not wet conditions, however, in the sunny conditions of Austria, but still struggling somehow. Meraki out of the exit of turn 10, clearly just able to get the most out of it, getting the best traction, and breaks down, clearly getting a bit too cocky with himself, and a 1:14.5 has now seen Punju take P1, and a little challenge of a 1:13.3 was not accepted, I guess, by any drivers, as Charles Leclerc still holds it above Creator Series. But Punju, with now pole position set down on the super soft compound tyres, and a 10.5, nearly 2 tenths down, is Meraki in P2, who actually would have taken P1 if he didn't brake.
Yeah, I have to say though, I thought Punju had messed it up. He had a big wobble going through the penultimate corner, lost a lot of time, but pulled it all back, and it is the Downs driver on pole. A couple of people out of position. You see Rob will be disappointed with 5th, and we saw it right at the end of the session. But if we scroll all the way down, look at P20, Diarmid Marduk D-New, disqualified, cutting corners. What a throwback that is.
Well, for a driver who's supposed to be representing Hayden Gillis, this isn't the same level that Hayden Gillis was driving at. However, it's going to be intriguing over a much longer distance of racing that the sprint race normally offers. Can Diarmid Marduk fight even further through the field? Well, I mean, if you are looking up on our screens very shortly, then you will see that the skies have not been nice to any of the drivers.
Absolutely not. As we saw earlier, I'll say it again, that is wet. And I think full wet tyres are
it is
option. I do just want to pick up on that thing from Ben. Do you think he's lost the first challenge?
Oh, if it is, that's great content, and it's a very, very smart move from Ben, and not surprising. However the case may be, it's going to be a tricky one for him, especially in the conditions I am currently witnessing here on track. But no, this is really starting to intrigue how this race is going to turn out.
Yeah, he has said that the Crazy Series this season is his meme season, so I wouldn't be surprised that was intentional. But we are off and running for the formation lap, 20 laps ahead of our drivers. It is Punji for Dams on pole position, with Meraki recovering from that difficult sprint race, trying to recover from the back of the pack in second, Matty 13. And then the two ART cars, potentially a little bit surprising to see Rob out-qualified by Devil sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It did seem like Devil Nude had once again the pace to be right up there near P1, but near the end of the lap, going towards third sector, he did take purple in the first sector. It just seemed like that pace was starting to dissipate away from him, and P4 is where he finishes on the grid. But I'm sure in these wet conditions, it gives him a lifeline, and gives everyone a lifeline for anyone that is able to challenge and overtake and compete in these wet conditions, and it gives them a perfect opportunity, not only at a podium, not only at an overtake, but a really good chance at gold.
Absolutely. This first lap, we could see a little bit of carnage, because the wet conditions in these cars are very, very challenging. They wouldn't have done too much wet running. Obviously, they would have practiced, because they knew beforehand that we were getting a sprinkling of moisture landing on the circuit. But yeah, this is into the unknown, I think is the best way to describe it. Unpredictability.
Absolutely. This is the first rain. This is the first bit of rain we're having for the entire season, right? I think this is, I believe, the first time we're finally seeing the blue in color Pirelli compounds being stuck on these F2 cars. So it is actually an unknown for a lot of these drivers.
Very interesting to see what goes on, and whether Punju can continue that form. It was a little bit of a shock pole position. I don't think we were expecting Punju to be the quickest. We were expecting him to be sort of challenging top 5, but yeah, an excellent pole position that. But Jake Meraki is very, very quick behind him, and there are also some championship contenders that will be batting it out behind. Mass D13, very quick. We saw excellent pace in the sprint race, and Rob as well in position number 5.
Yep, and as more and more drivers start to approach the grid for the final time here in F2, here for Austria for round 6, this is only starting to spice up more. Not only for the weather, not only for the grid, but overall for this championship, it just starts to look a bit more different.
Rain pouring down here in Austria. We have 3, 4, and now 5 red lights ahead of our drivers. And it is lights out, and away we go. Heavy rain as the drivers run up the hill towards turn number 1. Matty 13 getting a better start than Meraki, though, off the line, and could try and sweep around the outside to take second place. Very tentative into turn 1, but look at Rob. I think Jake's in trouble there on the exit.
He is. Meraki's gone very, very wide there. Just seemed to get a bit overzealous on the throttle. Clearly not used to wet conditions. Thought it was still just like the dry in qualifying and in the sprint race. And clearly having a big toll on the Tridents race. Now down to P20 as we continue here in racing into turn 3. Looks like Patterson in P17 just trying to fight away right over the sausage curb. And now going 3 wide on the exit. Down to P19. Fighting away with Zach RC. Clearly not able to get the most of it. Also looks like Jess Gamer's had a big mistake through there. Wasn't Jess Gamer, but actually George Morgan. I can't seem to find what actual car that may have been. It was near the lower part of the track and near the bottom of the pack. But whatever the case may be, clearly someone fighting hard with the car there as racing now continues here in Austria.
Punji with a comfortable gap out in front, and the big winner has to be Rob, 5th up to 2nd. Really, really good start ahead of Matty 13. I think Devil had a problem though. Back in
gravel!
The F1 Alex is off as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like JD, looks like Devil Noob's now down to P14. I mean, it was not a terrible position. It was P4 from the start of the grid. He's now down to P15. And rain clearly having a large effect on a lot of drivers who aren't used to these conditions. Too used to the soft compounds, sorry, not soft compounds, but the super soft and soft compound tyres that have been run through the Austrian Grand Prix, and now having a large toll on every single one last of these drivers. And it also looks like F1 Alex now up to P9 making the most of it. You can see who's making the most of it because it's Rob in P2. He started, what was it, P5. He's already made 3 positions in 2 laps, and he's now trying to close down that gap to Punju in P1, who's actually managed to stay from pole to P1, so he's been able to show some consistency. And Matty D-Thurn's actually going to send it down the inside, and Matty's not waiting at any point in this race. Slight contact made to the right-hand side of the side pod, but Rob needing to try and make this move set in stone and quickly if he wants any good chance at winning this race without any damage to that car.
Beautiful racing. There was a bit of contact initially, but they're still side by side as we come through the middle sector. Rob trying to hold on to this like it's for the World Championship, but Matty D13 says no. He's going to keep it side by side as we come up towards the penultimate corner. Who is going to back out? Because I think a crash could happen in these conditions. It's Matty D13 that backs out Rob, swings it around the outside, holds on to second, but I think he's gone off the road. Yes, he has, and he's going to be under pressure into the final corner. Still side by side, been like this for almost the entire lap. Bit of a wobble for Matty out of the final corner. Look who's behind them though in 4th place. Tiamat Marduk up from 20th on the grid into 4th place in the Prema. Managed to avoid all of the carnage on the opening lap. Rob does hold on to 2nd place though. Matty D13 will have to sit behind all the time being in the slipstream. Obviously no DRS because we are quite wet out there on the track. Matty D13 though, can he make this move up into turn number 3? It's going to be tight. As he got the overspeed, he's going to be later on the brakes. Moves over to the right hand side of the track though. Decides to sit behind.
Or slight contact made, and there is slight contact to the rear diffuser of Rob. Matty D13 just trying to sneak up a move. Clearly just a bit too late on the brakes. The rain just sliding the car around. And as you mentioned before, Tiamat Marduk is up 16 positions so far. I mean, what a race from the Prema as he slides through the exit of turn 4. What a race from Tiamat Marduk. Really is something special at this current time, and only 2.1 seconds off the podium.
Absolutely. Meraki trying to recover from that first corner blunder as well. Recovered up to 12th after dropping down to 20th place. But this is really helping Punju out in front. The longer that Rob and Matty D13 continue to squabble very aggressively, the longer Punju is going to hold on to that race lead. But I think Rob has finally managed to put a little bit of a comfortable distance between himself and the Carlin car, and will leave Matty D13 to defend from the charging Prema of Tiamat Marduk behind them when he catches them.
Absolutely.
Looking very likely. Ben's pace is absolutely rapid.
I mean, yeah, he is the street circuit merchant, as he has nicknamed himself, and clearly the tight circuits has been able to teach him very tight racing and driving style as he really starts to slide the car out of the exit of turn 1. But the main thing is he's keeping it all in control, and that seems to be the main point that is being brought up, the control that Prema is able to have. Something else that's going to be a big thing, now that we're on the wet compound tyres, I may as well mention the 2022 feature race strategy. They started on the wet compound tyres actually, and they went 7 laps on it before doing 33 laps on the mediums. We won't have more than 20 laps, so don't expect it to be such a long stint, but it does seem that maybe these wet compound tyres do degrade much quicker than what we currently see in F1.
Absolutely. We've got a really tasty battle going on for 8th, 9th and 10th between Hoodie Pete, G-Box and Yours Sincerely, though F1 Alex has made a big mistake and the Prema spun round. It's Hoodie Pete who lost it on the exits, clipped the Van Amersfoort car, I think it was, as F1 Alex was recovering. But Hoodie Pete from 8th place has slipped all the way down to 15th. We've got a virtual safety car as well. Wow.
Safety car is a bit... Oh, it is! Oh my god, commentator's curse. I said VSC, so VSC deploys, right? And I'm thinking in my head, safety car's a bit ignorant, isn't it? It really refuses to come out. And you know what happens? Safety car comes out. Perfect timing, but no, safety car is now deployed here in Creator Series, here for F2, and here on only lap 4 of 20, ladies and gentlemen. Rob has actually made the decision to stay out of pit lane, decides, no, I'm okay, I don't want new tyres just yet, and I'm sure the rest of the field are switching on to brand new sets of those blue wet compound tyres, but will Rob now have a disadvantage in these wet, slippery, and tricky conditions around Austria?
Very interesting split strategy decision here. The top 6 all staying out. Punju into the pits from was the lead, now 7th, and everyone behind them coming in. You can see the majority of drivers deciding to come in for a brand new set of the wet compound tyres. But Rob is the outlier out of the leading contenders, and I wonder if he'll come to regret that in a few laps' time, when the likes of Punju and Matty D13 are flying through these midfielders.
Absolutely, and these margins have been so close between every single last one of these drivers, and I would only have to assume the rain has had some type of assist in that. Yes, F2 is a spec series, and yes, they are meant to be close to each other to allow for drivers to, I guess, offer what they can do as a driver. I guess I've kind of mumbled up my words there, but my point being is it's to show their talent out on track, and I guess that rain has just brought racing just that tad bit closer than what it did before. Zach RC's actually gone right in between a brand new set of wet compound tires, I guess, sandwich in a way. He's up to P9, but he's got 2 people on fresh new wets ahead of him, so I don't expect him to make any new positions unless it is on that safety car restart when drivers would be right next to one another. G-Watts, Alex Budd, looks like it's going to be ART, JD, Devil Noob, looks like Jess Gamer as well. Punju stays out. Zach RC's actually coming into the pit lane now, and I think it gives you a better idea on the regret that some of these drivers have about not coming into the pit lane in the first place, and Jess Gamer with a 5-second time penalty.
Disaster. That's the only way that you can describe it, picking up a penalty for speeding in the pits, but it is now Rob and F1 Alex are going to be under huge pressure when this race restarts, because Punju was 5 or 6 cars back, now just 2 cars behind Rob. I think Rob in the ART may come to regret that decision, because everybody else pretty much has come in. Who stayed out apart from our top 2? George Morgan up to 6th place, stayed out on those old wet compound tyres. And that is it, because Artemis is also in pit road. So yeah, 3 drivers electing to carry on. Well, I think we could be seeing Punju take this race lead back very, very sharpishly.
Absolutely, but something I should also mention is a man who's 15 positions higher. Tiamat Marduk, he's currently in P5. But something I should mention about him is he is on fresh new wet compound tyres, just like Punju, just like Matty D13. If we switch back over to the tyres, you can have a much better representation of that. But I would say, from what we've seen so far, from the control that Kramer has been able to have, yes, he lost a bit of time out, but maybe on these fresh new wet compound tyres, the fresh new rubber that's now being laid out, though not very quickly, because what would be considered in what is pretty much these very treacherous and definitely wet compound issue. You're right, F1 Alex is now into the pit lane, clearly now finding some regret in the decision not to come to the pit lane earlier. I'm sure he'll be disappointed in not coming in earlier, but as I was continuing on just before, I would assume that now that a lot of these drivers right up near the front of the pack on these new fresh wet compound tyres may be finding a bit more pace in themselves, and we may, as commentators and as viewers behind the scenes and watching on the couches at home, will be just waiting with excitement.
Absolutely, and something's happened under the safety car, because George Morgan has picked up a penalty. He's lost a couple of places. Meraki picking up a penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So I wonder if the game has thought that Jake has overtaken George under safety cars, but it's actually the Invictus car making a mistake, and that's why they tried to go through, and then Meraki not letting George back through. That's why the penalty has been dished out. It is now only those 2, George Morgan and Rob, on the old tyres. That was a very late call from F1 Alex, and it's pretty much ruined his race, because he was in second, he was in a very good position anyway. Now down in 17th, a lot of work to do. The safety car's in this lap, and we're going to get racing once again with Rob leading them away, but watch out for Punju and Matty sat just underneath the rear wing of the ART car.
Well, if there was one way to put exciting without needing to describe it and just put an image or a video in it, this is exactly what I'd show them, ladies and gentlemen. On safety car restart, we have nearly the entire field on fresh new wet compound tyres. Rob out in P1 may find this as a very detrimental strategy in his favour. The ART now revving that engine over 7,000 RPM, sorry, I meant 9,000 for that matter. And he has quite a I guess, goal ahead of him.
Yeah, Meraki leading and then joining again, so maybe that has something to do with it, though. Getting ready for Rob to bolt. He's taking this very late, though, wanting to minimise the effect of the 60 for the cars behind down into turn 1. But he is gone now, and we are underway to start lap number 8 of the feature race. Here's Rob leading Punju and Matty, with Tiamat Marduk and Daniel Gilligan completing our top 5.
Yep, and just needing to try and follow each other as closely as possible, making sure to minimize as much damage and making sure to minimize any type of contact that is necessary. Right now, Tiamat Marduk is sizing a potential move on the inside line, does go late on the brakes, and Kramer is not waiting a single second more. Impatience potentially, but a move properly made. Not done yet. Matty D13 still on the outside line, able to put down that throttle at the same point of the Prema. Fighting continues between these two. Yellow flag. Looks like George Morgan is now down to P19, P20 as he fights away with Alex Budd, but a clear bit of issue between there for Invictus Racing, as racing right at the front of the field continues. Inside line for Kramer, sends it down the inside. Good momentum for him, continues to rotate the car. Kramer just needs to set it down in stone, and he does. Tiamat Marduk is up to P2. Ben is on the charge. He only has one final position to make. 3 lap hold wet compounds to 7. Who's in the favour?
The last to first challenge has clearly worked much better than he was expecting. Made up 18 places in 8 laps so far and wasn't satisfied with just getting past one Red Bull livery car. Fancied the second one as Punju slipped down into 3rd place, but still sat right under the rear wing of the Prema, and I wonder if Ben is going to be quickly on the move again to try and get the lead of this race, and then he can control it out in front. And then he would have completed the challenge by lap number 9, from last on the grid, disqualified in qualifying, up into the lead of the race.
Well, what I'll tell you what, out of the momentum of turn 1 and using that momentum now to try and bring himself closer, he's now looking for the outside line. Is he going to make it back to back out of the exit of turn 3? Didn't officially make it on Punju. Can he officially do it? Trying to get a switchback. Doesn't look like he's going to get that switchback. He's going to stay on the outside line. Now tries to deploy that throttle all the way down to the absolute fullest. Needs to just be a bit more patient, making sure not to be overzealous. Now looking for the outside line all over again. Late on the brakes, down to 5th gear, 4th, 3rd, and eventually 2nd, I'm sure. But now making contact with Punju. Punju a bit late on the brake, and now Primo's down to P2 with 4.5, nearly 5 tenths of a gap, and it's starting to devastate here. It's still so close, yet so far for so many drivers.
First blood goes to Rob out in front, but Punju a little bit overeager on the brakes. Got 2 involved in that scrap for 1st and 2nd. Clattered into the back of the Prema car. Lucky that there was no damage for either car, and they're both facing in the right direction still, but that hasn't dampened Ben's spirits in the pouring rain, because he's still right on the back of Rob, and he's chomping at the bit as we come up towards lap 10 as we reach the halfway stage. Rob's still in the lead. There is a big train of cars behind, going down to P8, the 2 Trident cars of Meraki and G-Watts at the back of this snake. You can see a big wobble at the back of Shotgun for G-Watts out of one. So Rob doesn't go defensive, no, just stays in the middle of the track. Ben's going to try and set this up for the run up towards turn 3 to get the lead. He tried it on the previous lap, couldn't quite pull the move off. Is this time going to be the time he gets through?
Oh, absolutely will be.
The overtake done.
Outside line, just making slight contact to the left-hand side of the side pod. Just needs a break in time, my apologies. But now goes right on the curb, making sure to avoid the sausage curve. Make sure to deploy the throttle all the way down, flat to the floor, pedal to the metal. Here in Austria, he's up to P1. Tiamat Marduk takes the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix in a fantastic fashion as he slides out of the exit of turn 4.
Textbook stuff around the outside of turn 3. Almost made a mess of it a corner later as he locked up the rear wheels and slid his way round turn 4, but Rob unable to capitalise. I'll now have to try and hold on to the positions behind, because Punju is still right there as he gets a little bit wobbly through turn 6 there. Has to be careful on the exit. Matty 13 still right in there, and Daniel Gilligan, we have to mention him, up 12 places, was a reserve, started down in 17th, was disqualified in qualifying, has made a very good recovery. And then it's Jake, who is back up into 6th after that first lap blunder. Is there contact there as Rob goes into the pits? It was a very aggressive dart to the left-hand side of the circuit. I wonder if he was given a helping hand by Punju, and it sort of caught the Dam's car up a little bit, and Matt's D13 was a little bit closer on the run down to turn 1, but probably not enough to make a move.
And Hoodie Pete with a 3-second time penalty now against his name for a track limit infringement. But in the case of Rob, you may have to ask yourself and also ask him, is this game over for him? Is a potential podium, is a potential lead of this race, is potential points not even going to be on display there? And I'm sure Hayden Gillis, who is well and truly watching on the sidelines as the reserve of Tiamat Marduk has the lead of the race, I would only assume Hayden is jumping for joy at this very moment.
Absolutely. And Rob, down in 18th with that pit stop. Clearly the wrong strategy on the side. He'd had enough of trying to defend from the cars around him. Will he be a threat later on in the Grand Prix, though? I wonder if these guys can take these wets the full race distance. We'll have to wait and see. The gap just under a second as we've got a yellow flag. I think.
Oh, yellow flag. Just having a better look at it, it does look to be Patterson, who is well and truly slow out of the exit of turn 4 and approaching now out of the kink and of turn 5 and now into turn 6. It does seem that Patterson had a small, I guess, I wouldn't say spin, but a half spin could be the way of describing it correctly. Just the rain getting the better of him, and Patterson on the 6-lap-old wet compound tyres clearly taking a toll on both the car and the driver's mentality. And now bringing him down to P12, right ahead of his teammate in P13.
I wonder if it was his teammate that he had contact with, because there was a little bit of orange and black bodywork, it looked like, in the gravel on the outside. So I wonder if they had a little bit of a scrap that didn't work out too well. Speaking of scraps, one Prema leads the race. One sat in 10th at the moment. B-Roy, though, putting pressure on Hoodie Pete as Hoodie Pete goes slightly wide through turn 1. And that's going to open the door for the Campos car to pull alongside and ahead. B-Roy up into 10th place. Can chase after Jess Gamer in the high-tech car for 9th. Will Hoodie Pete trying to retaliate into turn 3, though. He's later on the brakes, sends it up the inside. Good, clean racing so far. He's going to give a nice amount of space on the outside. They bang tyres, and that is a big wobble for B-Roy and drops back behind the Van Amstel car.
Patterson! I have to say, though, Patterson may have lost out a bit of time there, because Hoodie Pete, I wouldn't say stepped on the brakes, that would be counted as brake checking, but I do think he may need to readjust because he may have been starting to lose his rear, and because of that, Patterson's now lost a lot of momentum. What was out of the exit of turn 3 is now down to P13. It's allowed Hoodie Pete to stay in P10, B-Roy to defend in P11, F1 Alex to make a move against his teammate up to P12. In the whole case of this entire situation, Patterson has been a big loss out of this time.
Absolutely. In the space of 5 seconds, Patterson looking like getting up into 10th, falls back down to 13th, tumbling through the field. His teammate picks up a 3-second penalty, though, for corner cutting as Ben continues to fly out in front. We've got a car around that we know coming into the pits is B-Roy for what I assume is a brand new set of tyres. That is a very interesting call. One goes down on the road there as well. But yeah, B-Roy bids Bays adieu and pulls off into the pit lane.
Well, what I can tell you, Meraki is looking to go down the inside, and he is going to go down the inside. Late on the brakes in P5, does really lock up the tyres, though. Nearly goes sideways out of the exit, but actually ends up going the right way forward as Daniel Gilligan, a commentator for F1 tonight, clearly showing what type of pace he's got on display here in F2. And once again, late on the brakes, second gear, trying to rotate and force the car around out of the exit of turn 4. For P4, Meraki still has it. Daniel Gilligan looks for it again. Slight contact to the front and rear tyres of one another, and Meraki keeps P4 for the time being.
A little bit messy and almost a swap on for Daniel Gilligan. He got very wobbly, very fishtaily coming out of turn 4. Actually doing a straight line movement just a bit from Ashley Jake. So they contended for at worst the podium. Has he got the pace to catch Ben out in front? The Prema driver is looking fairly comfortable at the moment. 2 seconds the margin, but that's a lot of time out of the final quarter. In fact, has Ben made a mistake?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to keep an eye out, but 4/10 of a loss is pretty significant when you're showing so much consistency so far. So I'd only have to assume that maybe the rain in these 9-lap-old wet compound tyres may be starting to take a toll on the Prema. You could also say he could be doing a bit of memeing, and he wants to have a bit of a battle with Punju, because like you mentioned at the start of the race, he is taking a bit more of a jokey side to this season.
Absolutely. Fastest lap for Rob. We saw a brilliant move up the inside. The final corner from F1 Alex in the Van Amstel car to get past Hoodie Pete, who is now almost got deja vu, because it's another orange and black car trying to get past him. This time it's Patterson, and they're going to resume their scrap that they were having over the previous few laps. Lap 14, sending it up the inside of the lead Van Amstel car. Wasn't quite close enough, but terrible exit for the Prema, and that is all the invitation that Patterson needs to swoop around the outside, and that is going to be 11th place for the Van Amstel car. Can he hold on to down to 7-4? Gives the opportunity for Hoodie Pete to send up the inside. Well, he almost waved out the red carpet there as the car in front goes off. F1 Alex into the gravel, and they're going to get checked up behind a little bit. This happened earlier on in the race before Patterson out. Hoodie Pete's going to be the big winner as he scoots past the second Van Amstel car and manages to stay in the close.
It's still not done though. F1 Alex is still sneaking in his nose on the outside line. He's late on the brake, trying to keep the fighting going here out of the exit of now turn 7, and it's still not done. Continuing to fight and push his way and force his way past up to P10. F1 Alex late on the brake again into turn 9, and it's done and dusted for the time being, but a good amount of momentum out of the exit of turn 9 and now turn 10 again. It now seems to be for the case of F1 Alex. Move is set in stone. It is made and done and dusted for the time being, but Hoodie Pete tried to keep the fighting going.
Absolutely. This is very good racing down in the lower reaches of the top 10. We saw Arthur having a little look up the inside of passing into turn 1, and you can see in the background the championship leader Rob down in 14th. How many places can he make up in the remaining 5 laps of this Grand Prix? Is it going to be round 2 between Patterson and Hoodie Pete behind them, though? Rob up the inside of Artemis. This should be for 13. Big slides, he locks the rears. The Red Bull livery high-tech car of Distinct Artemis, and that is going to allow Rob to fly past his B-Roy down in 19th. Picks up a penalty. Rob up to 13th. Still got a lot of work to do out in front. 1.3 seconds the gap now. Ben starting to be reeled in by the trio, in fact, behind, because Jake's caught up to them very quickly.
It's pretty clear to see that maybe Tiamat Marduk is really starting to struggle on these older wet compound tyres, and maybe Punju has just been a bit nicer on them compared to the Prema driver. It is really starting to question if he'll be able to keep this lead for 5 more laps of action, or are we going to have a well and truly lead or change or a lead battle by the end of this race? I'll tell you what, we've got 5 laps including this one, 4 if you're just counting by numbers, and there is less and less time for moves to be made, so if this gap is coming down, we're going to see some final lap action, I believe.
Very much so, and this is the battle we need to focus on. At the moment, it's for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. Punju ahead of Matty 13, ahead of Meraki, but as they continue to take chunks of time out of Ben in front, nearly down to just 1 second, this could be a very tasty 4-way scrap for the win as we come into the last 5 laps of the Grand Prix. Matthew 13, pretty close to the back of Punji, down the second straight, and Punji with a little bit of a slide going into turn 4, opens the door maybe on the exit for the Carlin car to come up and take 2nd place. Is he going to have a look at the inside of turn 6? No, stays behind for the time being. Jake just a little bit behind, obviously very, very comfortable in 4th, and a very, very good recovery drive, it has to be said.
Well, right now it is Matty D13 just trying to stick right on the rear diffuser of Punju, but all he really needs to do is try and stick with them, because if Punju is breaking down some time, which I have to say he's now brought back 4 tenths, it may seem that Punju has lost some time out now. So maybe Tiamat Marduk has been aware of this gap as he gets a big kick out of the rear out of the exit of turn 10. And as I say, that does seem like the gap hasn't come down significantly, but as I was saying just before, maybe Tiamat Marduk is seeing this gap between him and P2 and now starting to really realize it's time to push and make sure this win is in my favor and make sure he has 2 hands on the trophy secure on the top step of the podium.
His opportunity wasn't quite close enough to make a move into turn 3. Will he try again, coming out of the hairpin to take 2nd place? Punji under pressure now, started to drop back a little bit more from Ben as his tyres seemingly starting to struggle on lap number 17. Jake right with him as well. Then it's 5 seconds back to Daniel Gilligan, who has another duo behind of Duncan and G-Watt squabbling for 5th, 6th and 7th. We've got a lot of battles going on. Punju slides out of turn 6. Matty D13 does the same, but he sends it up the inside anyway. He was able to control the side a little bit better than the Dam's car, and they're going to be side by side through these twisty middle sector corners. I think Punju's managed to keep it around the outside. Excellent defending. So much confidence for the Dam's car, especially after he lost the rear coming out of the previous corner. Excellent stuff, but that has let Ben escape. 2.3 seconds of gap. Matty's going to try it around the outside into the penultimate corner. This is going to be brave. It would have been bold if he had managed it, but he doesn't quite do it. Into the pits goes Meraki behind there, side by side into the final corner though. Punju on the outside. Matty 13, little bit of contact, banging wheel to side pod, and they're going to still be side by side over the line with 3 laps to go in this race. Jake into the pits very late. I wonder what that is for. Maybe it's for dry tyres. I don't think so. It's still raining, but Punji does.
It wouldn't be.
To 2nd place.
You know what? Something else that should be mentioned is the fact that the gap between P1 and P2 is 2.9 seconds. How do we go from 1.2 to potentially a change in the lead for potentially a complete race win battle on the final couple of laps. So now 2.7 seconds separating what is the current race leader of Tiamat Marduk and has been for most of this race to now 2.6 and starting to look much less inclined for a difference.
Well, James has come out on a brand new set of wets down in 16. I'm not quite sure what the decision making there was as B-Roy picks up another 3-second penalty. But yeah, that squabble has allowed Ben to get a little bit more of a comfortable margin out in front. We've got a yellow flag. I think it's Ford, right? Coming down the main straight. You can see him there going very slowly. What's gone on here?
Trying to get a better idea of it now. It does seem to be around where Meraki is, but it just does seem to be a bit of a driver error. Just maybe getting a bit too happy on the throttle. He is on fresh new wet compound tyres, and maybe clearly the tyre's not up to temperature yet, and well, the best of the temperature will be with these wet conditions and clearly having a toll. But have a look at this. B-Roy now off the track onto the grass, clearly starting to show a bit of degradation and a bit of struggle in the what is not really degraded tyres yet. 5-lap old wet compound tyres, and clearly just not able to get the most of it on the what is the penultimate lap of racing.
We've got to return to the battle for second place. Is this Matty's chance? He's managed to get his car alongside on the run up the hill towards the hairpin at turn 3. Can't quite get his car ahead of the Dams car. Better defending from Punju once again. He holds on to second place for the time being. Another chance for Matty to try and use the slipstream to good effect and pull out to whichever side he decides. Is Punju going to go defensive? No. The car a little bit too far back still, and Punju will stay in second place. The gap out in front, 3 seconds now. Ben looking ever more comfortable as we go through the final few laps of this race. Matty 13. As B-Roy retired, we won't get a safety car because it's too late in the Grand Prix. It is in the pits as well, so B-Roy has had enough of this one. But yeah, the battle for second will continue on to the final lap, but Ben looking set in stone for this race victory.
Absolutely. Another thing we have to mention, Daniel Gilligan still making 13 positions higher than where he started down in P17. Still a fantastic effort from him. Though right now in P4 and not really in contention for a podium, I think a small shout out is worth the notice. I mean, 19 positions for Tiamat Marduk. He started P20, he's in P1. He starts the final lap of racing, lap 20 of 20, with the current favor of the win with 3.4 seconds in his favor. No penalties against his name, and even if he did pick up a track limits penalty right now, 3.4 seconds wouldn't be able to cut it. So he's actually in a perfect position to not only win, but to win by a decent margin.
This is the last chance for Matty to get this second place. Still so close to the back of Punju going through the hairpin of turn 3. He's not had the best of exit, but it's a wobble from Punju, and that could enable the Carlin to get alongside and try and swing it around the outside. You'd imagine the Dams car goes defensive. He doesn't. Matty 13 not going to be brave on the brakes and launch it up the inside. Punju a little bit wide again through turn 4. Is this the opportunity that the Carlin's been looking for? Side by side up towards
outside
turn
line
number 5 and 6. We're going to go around the outside with the Carlin car. I don't think he's going to have the overspeed to try and swing it around the outside and get second place. He's going to try his hardest. Wow, if he manages this, is a brilliant move. He uses a little bit of gravel to keep him off the road, but I think he's got that position. Round the bends we go, and it is second place for Matty. Brilliant stuff to conclude this race as he gets past Punju.
Well, Tiamat Marduk, I have to say, has been left out in the spotlight a little bit. He's had a fantastic race. He started 19 positions lower. He's going to finish 19 positions higher. P1 on the board. Tiamat Marduk wins the Austrian Grand Prix. Matty T13 in P2. Punju finishes in P3 in what was a fantastic P2, P3 battle. P4 is Daniel Gilligan, P5 is Duncan, P6 is G. Watson. As I go back to Daniel Gilligan, 13 positions higher for him as well. Fantastic effort. Same for G. Watts, 8 positions higher. Rob finishing in P7, a devastating race which will cost them significant points, and Hayden Gillis now has that opportunity to come back at him at the next round of racing, because now Rob will be absent next round, so that's also going to play a vital role. Devil Noob P8, Jess Gamer P9, F1 Alex P10, Hoodie P11, Distinct Artemis 12, Zach RC 13, Patterson 14, Alex Bud 15, Yours Sincerely 16, George Morgan 17, Meraki 18, and only Vic will finish in 19, with B-Roy now DNFing from the race. Unfortunately, did not get to finish, but right back up to the front of the field. Prema will celebrate with glory in his eyes. He knows he's done it. We all know he's done it. Ben on top.
Absolutely. Brilliant drive. He was up to 4th by the end of the first lap after starting last, and from there it was fairly straightforward. Got through the cars around him into the lead of the Grand Prix and stayed there. Was under a bit of pressure late on. The gap did get as low as 1.2 seconds, but once the battling continued behind between Matty 13 and Punji, was able to cruise off into the distance and take the victory in the F2 feature race, and hopefully that gives you some good confidence for the main F1 race coming up after this. We're waiting for everyone to finish over the line. Marathi, I wonder if he just opted not to take any points on that coverage on the championship. But yeah, Ben on top, brilliant battle for second place that lasted pretty much the whole race. Punji wasn't quite able to get that race victory. He does finish in 3rd behind Matty, who had exceptional pace.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say I'm speechless. I have to say, though, that was one hell of a race. That was really, really fantastic to watch along with and get to commentate with you once again with, and really, really was something special here in Austria to see some fantastic racing throughout P2 and 3. A little bit of an option for the P2 driver to maybe fight away for P1. Fortunately, the gap did start to break away. I think it was around 3.6 near the end of the race. So Team Marduk really signed to secure that P1 in the bag. So fantastic effort from him pretty much from this entire race. So he really, really does deserve it. And yeah, 25 points in the game. I'm sure the points are just a little bit different when it comes to Creator Series. But whatever the case may be, Matty D13 and Punji having a very, very violent and also very, very fair battle for P2 and 3.
Rob picks up the fastest lap as well in 7th, so does get an extra point for his troubles, but yeah, we'll be bitterly disappointed with that coming home 7th. Look at the position changes though, 20th to 1st, 17th to 4th, Daniel Gilligan, excellent job, and G-Watts from 14th up to 6th. Brilliant race, brilliant action, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
You know what, I'm gonna share some honesty for a second. Though as a commentator, I must be humble in a way. I am about to speak to Team Marduk, and I am very excited. I don't know about you, but yes.
Yeah, very much. Before we get there, just to address the slight audio problems. Apologies for it. Was trying our best to get it sorted during the race, but yeah, unable to solve it. Apologies. It should be fixed next time. But yeah, hopefully it wasn't too bad that it the spectacle. But on to more positive things. We're going to speak to our top 3, and I think especially Punju and Matty, they will have quite the argument to give about their battle, because it was electric to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what that went on for 5+ laps. I think it started around lap 12, just after everything started to settle down a little bit. Everyone kind of went into their own groups and battles, and they continued to battle away throughout the race. But something that never seemed to die out, even it stopped around the exit of turn 8, was indeed, of course, Matty and Punju, and clearly making the most of it. And what a race, and what a battle between those two.
Absolutely. Great racing throughout the field. I mean, we're going to have to talk to Ben at some point about his first lap, because he avoided all of the carnage that was going on in those torrential conditions. But yeah, we'll get ready for some interviews, ask a couple of questions to our drivers. Championship-wise, this is Matty D13 is the big winner. Obviously, Rob not scoring as heavily as he has done previously, and with no Hayden Gullis, the driver that was in 3rd place in the standings, did jump up a little bit and make some good inroads on our championship leader. Yeah,
this is going to be big for Hayden Gillis. Now that Rob, he finished P7, am I correct? This is going to take a hit towards Rob's championship campaign, and though it is still a hit towards, obviously, Hayden Gillis, who scores no points at all, he didn't participate in this Grand Prix. Now that Rob isn't participating in next week's Grand Prix, when, obviously, Hayden Gillis comes back to race, he needs to make sure he makes the maximum out of it. He also needs to hope Tiamat Marduk doesn't show up. But, obviously, if he gets the opportunity, he needs to make everything count. He needs to try and get P1 whenever possible. He needs to just excrete everything possible because he knows points are really starting to come towards his favor, and this is where he can start to make that pushback in the championship.
Definitely. It is going to be a big race next week with no Rob involved, as you said. It's the biggest opportunity that a lot of our drivers are going to get to pull their way back into championship contention, challenge for that promotion spot. Should we do some
Absolutely.
interviews? Should we do some interviews?
I think some interviews shall be nice, sir.
So we've currently got Punju and Matty waiting in the interview room. So which order do you want to do? Do you want to do third then second, or second then third?
Let's just do third, then second. May as well do it in the technically correct order.
Yes, so let's do that. We're going to bring Punju in first, and after a brilliant drive from Punju, it is third place. Pole position in one-shot qualifying, wasn't quite able to hold on. How would you summarise your race there?
Man, had better, had worse. Ben is a sweaty nerd. For more points. Dang it, Ben. But no, I mean, it was super fun. The battling with Maddie was the highlight for a huge, obviously, like we were in a VC and we were like, hey, we know Ben's gonna pass us. He's definitely got the pace on us. Let's just stay behind. Let him and Rob battle it out. And I wanted him and Rob to battle a little bit harder because if he would have lost 3% more wear, he would have had a puncture. We would have passed him. I know it. So yeah, our strategy almost worked. Is kind of how I would say it, but didn't quite.
And you were so close to second place in the end. You defended brilliantly for, I think, the 10 laps or so after the safety car came in. Just not quite able to hold on right at the end.
Yeah, it was that final lap for Matty was genius, honestly. He played it really smart. He had been saving his tires for so long. And like literally all the way leading up to that, he was like, yeah, I'm going to save my tires, keep going. And then he just knew, like, hey, last lap I'm going to take him. He was saving ready for it, so yeah, unfortunate, but it is what it is. We gave everything we had, and P3 will do. That's the second podium here in Creator Series, second podium of the season. I'm happy.
I have to ask you quickly as well. Qualifying, pole position, what was your reaction to that like?
I just want to, I owe Jake dinner for that one. He had pole position, but he slowed down on the line and gave it to me. Otherwise, yeah, I would have gotten second, but it felt great. I mean, I needed those 2 points for sure. I was freaking out. I was stoked. It's my first pole position ever in Creator Series, so yeah, it was pretty cool. That felt great. I don't even care how I got it. If somebody had to kind of hand it to me, I don't care. I still got it. It's on my record. Let's go. So yeah.
Take them however they come. Jamie, anything you want to say to the third place driver Punji today?
Obviously, you were fighting very, very hard with your, I guess, contender for P3. Maddie D13 did catch you out at the very end, did take that P2 away at the, what was the exit of turn 8. But whatever the case may be, you and Maddie D13 continuing to show I guess a battle between P3. So going into next week, how confident are you feeling? Maybe you can snatch away that P3 that Maddie D13 has continued to defend.
I think there's a shot at it. My championship rival Jam Pancakes, he's pretty good. But no, he's he's a scary one for sure. I don't really know if I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I gotta just take them as they come. I usually try my best not to think ahead of time and be like, oh, if I do this, then I'll get this, because I just don't want to put that pressure on me. I just say, just go out there, give it everything I got, and let the cards fall as they may. I don't even remember what track is next week. Are we getting close to Saudi Arabia? Please.
Let me update for you, sir. If I have a look at the calendar,
it's Portugal.
It is. Yeah, you're right. It is Portugal.
I like Portimao. I feel confident there in the F2 cars. I've done some racing there in F2, and it's usually gone decently well for me. So I like it. Roller coaster tracks like that are usually like my jam. I'm just scared of the wet because today that tire wear on the wet is just brutal. So yeah, that's all I got to worry about.
Well, either way, congratulations on what was a fantastic P3, but still very, very, very close racing between you and Matty. And yeah,
appreciate it, man. Thanks, guys, for the comms.
Cheers.
See y'all.
Cheers.
See ya.
So we've spoken. I hate to break it to you, Jamie, but I think Ben.
Yeah, I've seen. Yep.
It is a shame for you.
It is.
all
No,
want
no.
to hear
Listen, it is what it is. Listen. You may not want to openly say it, but I heard you before the stream. You also wanted to speak to him.
Legend of the scene. Legend of the scene.
Mm.
We will bring Matty in though. A brilliant drive to second place, and we are very interested to hear his thoughts on it. Matty, hello. Before we get into anything, that overtake on the final lap.
I mean, I wasn't trying to overtake Ponju as such, but I knew if I was to go for it at any point, it would have to have been the last lap. Ponju was making a little bit of mistakes. His car was sliding a lot more than mine, so I was able just to get the better grip out of, was it turn 4?
Yes, I
believe.
It would have been, yeah.
Turn 4 where I got the little cutback on him, and then from there onwards, me and him were just side by side, and then I think he kind of gave it up a little bit because he didn't want both of us to crash out, so...
Well, the pace you demonstrated was extremely good, especially in the sprint race. You were flying through the field. How was that to come back through and pick up all of those places? Because you got pretty well stuck in with a lot of the drivers around you.
So yeah, in the sprint race, I got a good start. I think I got 5 positions going up towards turn 3. And then when I started to get settled in, I think it was Zach that tried to send it on me from 6 tenths back, but I don't know if it was like by mistake or anything, so I would like to think it was. So I think that was on his behalf. On like he took full responsibility basically that he missed his braking point. I got a little bit of wing damage from that, but other than that, I was able to just fly through. The wing damage was killing me though, for sure.
I've got to ask you quickly as well about the strategy. Obviously, you pitted under the safety car early on for those new wets. Rob and a couple of others stayed out, but then they all filed into the pits on the very next lap. Was there ever the consideration from you that you were going to stay out on those wets, or was it always, I'm going to box and put some new tyres on?
Always going to box. Always. With the fresher tyres in the wet is like a massive, massive difference. Hence why Ben was able to keep with Rob fairly well, keeping it side by side. When them two were battling it out, me and Ponju were both saying, let's just let them battle it out. Let's let them wear their tyres a bit more. But obviously Ben was able just to keep gapping us. And towards the end, he obviously had like a 6-second gap, was it? From me and Ponju. But yeah, I was always going to box there. Rob stayed out. It was a bit of a mistake, I would say, from him. Knowing that how good wet tyres are when they're fresh is a bit of an error from his end.
Big blunder. Jamie, thing to...
Well, I guess similar question to what I answered or asked, sorry, to Panju, who currently sits P4 in the Drivers' Championship. It's a similar question to relate to the Drivers' Championship, and that is where you currently sit P3. You continue to sit in P3, though you do bring it very, very close to Hayden Gillis, who currently sits in P2, only on 113 points. My question to you, though, is going into Portugal next week, next round for round 7, how confident that you are going to be able to continue to defend against Panju for P3 in the standings?
I'm feeling very confident. Me and Panju have already said, as Hayden is back next week and Rob is away, so they're kind of swapping. One comes back, one goes, so me and Panju have kind of got the same vibe that we should try and hopefully do the same thing again to keep with Hayden. Portugal is one of them tracks where sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. It varies to what weather it is, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, let's say theoretically it is dry conditions. Do you think you're more confident in that, or maybe if it was theoretically wet conditions, what would you say would be a stronger suit for you going into Portimao?
100% dry. The wet, me and the wet don't get along at all. Like with the F2 cars and how like you can get the throttle down pretty easy, but it puts a lot of wear on your rear tires. So I'm hoping it is going to be a dry race, but then again, I can't control the weather, unfortunately. If I could, I'd love for it to be dry.
Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
Outstanding performance from you. Pace was really strong, especially in the sprint there. Second place, and I think very proud of your efforts.
I am. I'm very happy. I'm closing it in to Hayden very, very closely. I don't even know how far I am from behind him now, to be fair.
It's definitely a battle we need to keep an eye on for the final
It is.
few races of the season. Thank you very much for talking to us, though. We wish you well for the rest of the season. And next week in Portimao, hopefully it's dry for you.
And you guys, thank you very much.
See ya.
So, I think that is us pretty much done. No
It is.
Marduk, unfortunately. We don't
No,
get to
I
ask
know.
him about
It's okay. Listen. I understand. A fellow Australian clearly can't speak to a fellow Australian, and I get it, man. No, I'm kidding. Clearly he needs to start focusing towards F1, and that's completely fair of him. He has a big race ahead of him, just like how he had a big race tonight in F2. So no judgment towards him. Completely fair enough. And on our end, I think there's not much else to discuss except what a fantastic race it was. Very, very competitive throughout the entire field. Gio McMurdoch being able to just pull away in those final couple of laps, 3.6-ish seconds near the end of it, and a great battle, like I've said many, many times at this point, between Matty and Punju. And throughout the entire field, like I said, Daniel Gilligan, 13 positions higher, out of finishing in P4, and then G Watts as well, 8 positions higher, I think, finishing in P6.
Finally, some reward for G-Watts in the field, because he had quite a bit of bad luck in the last couple of weeks, especially with some very, very strong sprint race performances. But yeah, I think that is us pretty much done. Apologies once again about the audio balancing issues. It should be sorted next time. Everybody is live, but yeah, apologies for that. Hopefully it wasn't too unbearable. But yeah, we are going to run the highlights from last week before we get into the F1 action. I hope you're looking forward to it. The guys will be back at 6 o'clock sharp for that. I've been Tom. This has been Jamie. We will see you guys next week. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you then.
Good night.
Tom jumps into the pits, so they will not finish out their lap. They will not improve, so they will be ninth place at best in this session. Yeah, absolutely, Gareth. They are at risk. Now across the line goes Dave Gaming, and Dave Gaming, who has Mr. Chris in the chat supporting them, goes up to P2 briefly before GB68 jumps up to P2. Now then, Kenko in the Williams is going to carry on a little while. Patterson/Meraki goes into the pits, so back to Kenko and the other Williams, and they come around the 130R corner. They're going to get themselves down towards turn number 1, but first we're going to watch as El Rey comes across the line. It's third place for the Spaniard. Very good lap time from them. And now then, as we switch back to Kenko's in 16th position at this particular moment in time. No, we're going to have a look at Noguera, who goes 15th. And now they're going to look at Dirk Chocolate. Dirk now is 17th. Where are they going to go? 12th place for Dirk Chocolate. That means Kenko is out of the session. Noguera is out of the session as well. They have finished up. Emphatic is under risk right now. They need to be able to finish out this lap well. They are improving very handily, but they've gone very deep in the first part of the Casio Triangle there. They're now going to drive out of that final turn up towards the line. The Scarlet car, where his hero is going next year. What's going to happen? It's going to be P6, then P7 for Emphatic as Michi Hoyer betters their time at the top of the table, takes a provisional P1. Ben Daly in the other Scarlet car goes across the line and gets third place. And so that then means that those still out there running will not go out in this session. It is Dirk Chocolate surviving with Chesnoy, Noguera, Kenko, and then Peya and Patterson/Meraki going out in this first session. Down in towards that Casio Triangle chicane to finish out the lap then. He comes through that. It's all looked tight. It's all looked tidy. Round the final corner, and Rasin Chai is going to go fastest with a 1:27.4. Let's see how that shapes up to all those chasing behind.
Yep, GB68 is the next man who's going to go on the line. Go over the line. He had a bit of traffic in sector 1, but GB68 is going to come to around the final course. I think Dirk Chocolate has left to go out of the pits, but I think he may have left it a little bit too late. We'll keep an eye out whether he's beaten to the buzzer as he comes around the last curve. GB68, that is, crosses over the line and goes into second position. That's 5 tenths away from Razin Shai. Is that going to be safe? We've only had 2 times set on those dry tyres, both within the 127. So you have to think GB68 has done a decent enough time. Safso, a little bit of a twitch through the S section here as he curves his way through the first section. And of course, it's only 12 seconds left on the the clock here, so it's going to be the final laps of all of our drivers. Alex Gillen, a man who knows how to drive quickly within the Creator Series, is out there too, and he is going to go around turn 12 and towards the Spoon curve next. And Dirk Chocolate, I think, has been beaten, so he didn't get out of the pits in time. A real rookie error from him, and he will be absolutely cursing himself as Alex Gillen now heads down the hill and then up the hill as he crosses over the first sector and towards the final sector he'll head over. Alex Gillen not setting absolute best times here, but they are improvements on his own time. You expect that, of course, because his previous time wasn't set, of course, so he hasn't set a time on inters. He decided to save the intermediates and he crosses over the line. He goes into second, so only 0.02 of a second away from Razin Shai, and that was all in the final sector for him. Safso now towards the final corner. Where will Safso put himself up? The season 1 champion jumps up into first position, so that is a very good time from him.
That is a very good time from Safso. That's what we like to see, where one Aston goes to the top. What does the other one do? Well, GB68 follows home his teammate and stays in P4 for the time being. El Reguri, though, takes that P4 just a few moments later in the Alfa Romeo. Michi Hoyer comes across the line to go P7. So there is definitely an improvement to be had here. Dave Gaming has jumped up from P11 and into P8 now. 9. Skyzy jumps to the top with the fastest time. Then we get across the line the Alpine of who was that in the back? That was Tom going up to P7. That means that right now it's looking like Benjamin Daly is out. And so too is Infrasic, I think. I think he only jumped up 1 place. Yes, 12th place for Infrasic. Both Ferraris in a shock Q2 elimination.
Alex Gillen goes over the line into first position at 1:27.521. We have seen quicker today, and the Mercedes are giving each other a tow.
Absolutely they are. We've got a driver who then we've got a bit of confidence here from Razin Shai. They feel as though they can get a top 3 here today. They've, of course, just provided that tow, as you say, to their teammate as well. So hopefully for their sake, for their team's sake, it's going to be a good Mercedes group performance here. Tom 97 has beaten Alex Gillen's time so far. We've then got Michi Hoyer setting that time with the extra tow from their teammate. They're still a good 4-5 tenths off of Alex Gillen. Never mind the over a second that they are away from Tom 97. So Tom 97 has done a bang-up job on their lap there. We now watch as Razin Shai starts to make their way around. So driver that is hoping for a top 3. Let's see if this is a top 3 lap that is going to come from them in this particular qualifying session. They go across the second sector split now. It looks like a purple second. No, it looks like a personal best second sector there for Razin Shai. So not going to be setting the world on fire here, but could still well be a very good time indeed. So as they come through the final corner then, up towards the line, cutting it as much as they possibly can. Maybe even cut it a little bit too much, because it's only P4 for Razin Shai, not that top 3 that they were hoping for.
A man who's won 11 times in the Creator Series, and he has improved on his personal best, but it isn't fastest of all. In fact, the 2 fastest of all through the first sector on exactly the same time. But Tom 97 gone over the line, and he's gone into a 1:26.372. So that's a good time from him. And we have M Sky Z. He's going out on a lap. He's coming towards the final corner at the moment, and GB68 on the team radio. Not an ideal lap time for me. Of course it isn't. It's down in 5th position and could be dislodged further, and will be dislodged further. M Sky Z doesn't improve his time. He's gone up to 2nd position here. Alex Gillen now towards the second sector split has improved on his time by 7/10 of a second. That'd be enough to put him into 3rd or 4th position as things stand. We have Razin Shai, Elmay Giri and Alex Gillen all out there on laps at the moment. Alex Gillen next over the line. He is going to improve. Where he's going to put himself up to 3rd position. Then it will be the likes of Razin Shai and Safso. Safso goes over the line. He's gone into 6th position. Razin Shai is in 4th, but it's Elmay with no front wing. So he's had a big moment out there through that lap. So he won't be improving on this time. It's Razin Shai who will be the final man who could displace the top 3 unless Tom or Michi Hoyer come up with some magic. But they're all going quite slowly there, and I think there's been a bit of a tangle. So that is it. Tom 97 is going to take pole position in the Mystery Grand Prix, and Tom isn't going to get a lap in because something has happened with those Mercedes boys on the back straight. Maybe they were trying to work for a slipstream down towards 130R, and it just didn't work out. But that is a sad day for them. Razin Shai, who looked so good through those first 2 qualifying sessions, did not improve and is down in 4th position. He'll be on the 2nd row of the grid for the race coming up in just a few moments' time. But it's Tom 97 who is on pole. The man in 5th in the championship is followed by the man in 1st in the championship. It's MSkyZ, and he'll take front row any day of the week.
Look at this from Tom 97. He is pointing not even towards Terminal 1, he's pointing towards the wall. There we go then. Well, Creator Series race. Mystery GP is about to start. Here in Suzuka we have 5 red lights. Lights out after a long hold, and it's go, go, go here in the Creator Series. Down towards turn number 1 they go. The gamble has not paid off for Tom 97. Up the inside goes MSkyZ, and before they get to turn 1, he's got the lead, but then it's taken away. Late on the brakes is Tom 97, but it doesn't end up working out for them. They're in the middle of a sandwich. It's them, it's Alex Gillen, and then it is MSkyZ. MSkyZ is going to give him the space, though. Rally outside the long way round in the first part of the S's, but now then as they come through the second part, it's going to be once again side by side, nip and tuck between the pair of them. Tom 97 might just have this. He's going to hang it all the way around the outside, potentially up and towards Dunlop. He's done it! He's gotten himself back into the lead ahead of MSkyZ. El Rey Yuri's made his way up to 3rd place ahead of Alex Gillen, who is down to 4th place. Then it's a Mercedes 5-6 at this point in time, but in the background you can see there, El Rey Yuri making the big old move up the inside there, just battering MSkyZ off of the circuit, I think. That was not exactly leaving space all the time. You've got to leave the space, as Fernando Alonso once told us, of course, and that not necessarily being embraced by their countrymen. But as it is then, we've got MSkyZ making their way back up from where they fell off of the circuit, back up to 6th place now, and so they have got a little bit of work to do. And it's Mercedes 4-5, then Safso, Tackleman, GB, Tom, Dave Gaming, Infratic, Chesnoy Gaming, Tiamat Marduk, Peya, Dirk Chocolate, Patterson, Noguera, Kenko, and that guy, Vince. But we've got MSkyZ then on the defensive, really not looking like they're in the absolute best state right now in terms of their fight, in terms of their prowess. And on the start-finish straight, I tell you what, someone else is losing out is El Rey Yuri, because Rasin Chai comes up the inside now, having not gotten the qualifying position they wanted necessarily. They're starting to bring it together in the race. So that is a position gain for them. They're going to chase on after Tom 97.
But GB68 still harassing and harrying Alex Gillen all the way down the straight towards 130R, and you have to think Alex Gillen is maybe running a dry setup on there, because GB68 is not a car you see overtake them often, but he's into the wall, and that's a big incident, and that is GB68 tumbling down the order as his championship goes from bad to worse. There's no front wing, and a safety car is being called. It's always dangerous to go for a move into 130R. There must have been contact between the two, and that is a big, big moment in this championship.
So out of the final turn then, we watch as Tom 97 boots it, and away we go. He's booted it, but the back end doesn't want to go with him. He wants to move about like a bit of a fish, to be honest with you, as it snakes this way and that. And now down the start-finish straight, we've got Rasin Chai chasing in hot pursuit after Tom 97. But despite those problems, Tom 97 has survived this time and goes into turn number 1 with no problems at all. Dave Gaming has been able to get a move done on MSkyZ. And so SkyZ then in that McLaren is sadly for them falling down the order here after that first initial contact on the first lap that then sent them off of the circuit. And so away we go then for another bit of racing. Yeah, certainly. And so as we go around that final turn then once more onto the start-finish straight, we've got Dave Gaming in our sights at the moment, but further back we can see then that Safso is right there in P9. He's now up to P8 because he gets the move on Meraki. That new set of tyres is doing an absolutely fantastic job so far for Safso. That's 2 position gained off the restart. And they'll be able to... Oh, and in the background there, that is Infratic round. Infratic is round. He's hit the wall. It looks like that Ferrari front wing is in one piece, but he has lost an enormous amount of time and positions at this point. And this is all now looking like it's falling apart for Infratic, sadly for them. But at this point in time, then we've got Tom on our screens now chasing on after Meraki. They are trying their absolute best to try and get themselves alongside and then move on past the Williams driver, as they've seen Safso do. They know that it is within their car and within those tyres to be able to do it. But the question is going to be whether they can end up doing that in rapid time. Because if they're not able to, then of course the big problem for them is then up the inside they go. Never mind all that wax lyrical about whether they can or can't. Up the inside they go in the hairpin, and they get the job done. There's a little bit of wheel banging on the receiving end there of Meraki, but he does manage to get the move all sorted and done, and that is him then up into P9 for Tom. He's now got a little bit of ground to catch up to get onto the back of Safso, who in turn needs to get a bit of a shift on. If he's able to get within that sort of slipstreaming distance of MSkyZ, maybe around about a half a second or so, that will then protect them from from Tom. If they stay a little bit further back, though, that could potentially lead to them losing out and getting into a fight with Tom, losing time to those cars in front, and then causing all the problems that they will end up having as a result of that. And on the run up towards number 3, but you can see there, that is exactly what Racing needed, a good run through there. And Kenko is retired from the session. Is that in the pit lane? No, that's somewhere else out on
VSC,
circuit. That is VSC has now been called as a result of that. I don't know whereabouts that has happened, but Kenko has gone out as a result. Fratic has clearly driven past the incident. But yeah, it's wow, that's just no idea where on earth that has happened. We're getting estimates somewhere around the hairpin, but sorry.